Welcome to Saturday versus Sunday. I'm Geoff Dover. With me is John Barban. Let's talk football.
National champs, baby. All
It's
right,
pretty
so
exciting.
we're obviously going to be homers on this episode. We're going to talk a little bit about the basketball championship, but what we're going to tie it into football is the fact that the last time the Gators basketball team won the championship in basketball, they also won it in football.
Mm-hmm.
And that was
What
in
a
the
great
middle.
time that was.
Oh boy,
It's
yeah,
great.
it's been a while. But
It was
okay,
it was on a personal note. It was so great going to a school or working at a school when the basketball and football team was good. Like it was just such as a fan to be able to go to both sports, and when they're doing really well was a really good time.
it wasn't just good; they won it all in both.
I know.
Like, that's
It's
better
amazing.
than good. That's
Mhm.
unprecedented, right?
Mhm.
And beating Ohio State in both. The memes were pretty funny after that, and the Ohio State fans were a little irritated, but good for them for getting there for both games. All right, so this is pretty rare. Well, first of all, it's never been done in the same. Florida's the only school to ever do it in the same
in the same
year.
Okay,
right. And then as far as schools who've ever done it, not I mean just at all. Any school who has both a national championship in football and in basketball at any time in history. How many? I don't even want to say how many. Can you even guess at any schools who have? I mean, a couple of them should be sort of obvious.
Okay. Boy, you brought up Ohio State. I feel like that might be one.
Yes.
Is that on the list?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
They have one basketball championship, and it's old. I did the research here. Maybe I do have the dates.
Is it going to how about Army?
No, but it's an interesting idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just because they would have had some older ones
Ohio
too.
State's basketball championship was in 1960.
Okay.
And obviously Florida stopped them from getting the
UCLA?
Yes, UCLA. Yeah. 11 basketball championships, one football in 1954. Right. Now, to be fair, some of those are joint. Some of them, I think UCLA is a shared championship with like two other teams that year, because all the coaches poll does one thing and the AP does the other.
Auburn?
No.
Okay. I'll give you one more guess. USC?
No, it's a good guess though. All right, so you missed an obvious one, Michigan State.
Oh yeah, that would have been a good one.
And then staying in the state of Michigan, Michigan has done both. Then another one that you just wouldn't guess, Maryland.
Oh wow, when was their football one?
Maryland's football championship was 53.
Okay.
Then another one that kind of makes sense, only sort of, but Syracuse.
Interesting.
Yeah, and their football championship was 59.
Okay.
And obviously they have I guess not obviously. I think they only have one basketball championship in 03. But
Carmelo
they were
Anthony.
always kind of hanging around at the top there.
Yep.
And what else? That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, one other. Sorry. Arkansas.
Oh, interesting.
Of all places, right? So,
So
theirs was 64 and 94.
Okay.
So that's it. Those are the teams. So that's not a lot of teams that have done this.
No.
And Florida is obviously the one that has done it, at least in our memory. So and that we could see both of them.
Should have got the Michigan State one just from our Davy B connection.
Yeah,
I feel like we should have known that one.
Connections to Michigan State, so we should have been aware that. I mean, we weren't around to see the football championships, but we were aware that they won it, and then we did see the 2000 championship. And then the only other school that people might have a memory of seeing, would have a memory of seeing both, is Michigan. I guess they won the basketball championship in '89, so that's at least within. I don't know if I'd be fully aware of college basketball in 1989. I was pretty young for that. I would have already been watching football, but I don't think I was paying too much attention to basketball back then.
Yeah, no, I remember in 92 or just before that, was the UNLV and Duke final game when that was really good. So that might have been right around that time. So
yeah. So anyways, now I think the tide is turning, and obviously we have.
You don't mean Alabama?
Well, yeah, kind of. I was going to say Auburn, Alabama. Some of these big SEC schools, their basketball programs are really coming a long way.
Well, this year was crazy. It was 14 SEC teams made the March Madness, right? And the SEC is going to have more teams in the football playoffs, arguably going forth going forward in football. So, it feels like it could happen again sooner than maybe it has in the past.
Yeah. When you think of the tradition, I think when you think of the traditional basketball powers, there just aren't also football powers.
Right.
Actually,
that was the big knock on Florida on basketball for a while, was that it was a football school.
It's a football school. But now, and it's the only one with 3 and 3. All of these others, I don't. Michigan State's the only one with more than. They have 2 and 2, and then everybody else, it's one basketball and a bunch of football, or one football and a bunch of basketball. So, and the thing is that I guess the NIL and all the money and the revenue sharing is all going to start changing some of this, but really it's the TV deals in football, specifically in the FCC, that have generated so much money that some of that money's found its way to the basketball programs, and the schools bother to allocate money to the basketball programs. Like they're doing it sort of, they can choose not to, but they are. And it almost like Kentucky's sort of seems like one of the ones that's like, well, their football program's coming along, but the traditional basketball powers, just not too many of them have a strong football program. The one that was oddly almost did it, or at least had a chance, was Kansas.
Yeah. I was just thinking that. Yeah. Kansas football was bad for a long time.
Yeah, but that year they finished with Mangino at what? They finished 3rd in the country. It was maybe 15, 20 years ago, whatever it was. It's oddly, they're one of the only schools that got close. And you would never in a million years guess Kansas, of all places. And now obviously they're a powerhouse basketball team, but their football program's nothing to shout about. So you end up with these odd names like Syracuse, Arkansas, just ones you probably wouldn't, Maryland, you just wouldn't have guessed. But I bet you in the next few years, we're going to be adding more SEC schools to that list.
Yeah, there's very few schools that have traditionally, for over a prolonged period of time, strong basketball and strong football. Michigan is and Michigan State are probably one of the only ones that, and you could have made the case for Syracuse probably back in the day. Those are good examples of, like, it's not super surprising about those schools, but it's hard. It's rare for something like, and even a school like Stanford, which is sort of known for its overall sports prowess, like, because they have multiple sports they're really good at, that even that wasn't, you wouldn't have put football and basketball for them either, even though
Texas was getting close there for a little bit.
Yes, you're right. Texas and Stanford are sort of in that same vein of multiple sports doing well. So
they can win the national championship in multiple things, but it's just I don't know. I guess doing this little exercise of researching it just reminded me how rare it is for any school to actually have both of them at all, let alone potentially in the same season. So obviously, if you guys listened to one of our previous podcasts, I picked the Gators to go all the way and win the championship. Not because I think they're the odds-on favorite or anything, just a value bet. It was,
we did a crazy early betting segment,
right,
and the price you got for Florida winning the SEC and Florida winning the national championship was really good. Same with Lagway winning the Heisman Trophy. It feels extra good when the basketball team does well.
Yeah,
has played well.
No kidding.
It's a good time to be a Florida fan right now. But basketball's done its job, so now it's just up to you guys. Football
halfway there to the double natty. Oh, okay. So I wanted to I find basketball more stressful to watch than football.
Oh, good question.
Dina said, she's like, oh my God, you're completely different watching basketball. Like, I'm falling off the couch. I think it's because there's more possessions and there's more moments of seeing them make mistakes. Whereas with football, I don't know. It's just like a 3-yard run in football. Like, okay, that's fine. Or just completing a pass, like a slant. It's like, okay. But every possession in basketball, like, I don't know. It seems like the errors are more obvious when they get sloppy passing the ball around. And it's like, what are you doing? Just handle the ball, or they dribble it off their foot. I feel like it's easier to see the mistakes and giving away possessions and giving away opportunities. I don't know. All I noticed, she said, this is crazy how much more upset you get watching them play basketball.
Right. Part of it was really good games too, right? And the Florida was down in the last 3 games and came back to win. So like that speaks to it a bit. I don't know. I mean, I'd push back a little bit about I hear you about the possessions. I see what you're saying with that, but it was super frustrating when I think it was Baltimore, like when the tight end just dropped that pass and they could have like won that game in the NFL, right? or like in football where they're, when they drop the ball right before the end zone and they're just running in, and so that mistakes are frustrating with that. To me, it's more of there's nothing like the stress of being a fan and watching your team in a close game and then seeing the mistake, whether it's football or basketball. I
Yeah.
think that part's is super hard. I think it's the stress I get when watching the team I want to win, the team I'm a fan of, not being able to stop the other team in football is super frustrating.
Oh my God.
Or
Yeah.
or when the offense, like with Richardson when he was the QB for Florida, and they wouldn't move the ball for like so many possessions is super frustrating. But you're probably right. I think it's a different kind of stress with basketball, like because it can be so fast, like you can in 2 seconds you can get a good pass and get the shot up, and there's nothing like hitting a shot with no time left on the clock or the time runs out or something like that. It's probably a different kind of stress, but I don't know if I'd say it's more or less stressed than watching when I'm invested in a football game.
Maybe it's the nature of the tournament. Like anything past the first round, you're not blowing anyone out unless you have some kind of generational team. It is stressful. Every single freaking game is stressful.
Yeah.
And obviously they can lose at any moment, and then they're going to go on a run. No lead is safe. There's just not a moment where the stress, there's the intensity's like down.
No,
it's just constant.
And it reminds me of our Georgia guy. What's the
Santiago? He can't even look at the TV.
Right. Like, and I remember thinking that when Georgia was really good, and they're heavily favored in a game, and we would be like, well, they've got this one, and he's like, I don't know, man. Like, it's and it's the stress he would feel watching that.
Well, the funniest thing is we were out watching Georgia versus Notre Dame with Santiago.
Right.
He was in the band, so shouting out he's a hardcore Georgia alum, and he faced us while we faced the TV. He didn't even look. I'm like, dude, what do you can't even, and they beat them.
Yeah.
And you and I were like, they're going 14, to win this game.
Yeah, 14 at one point. It'd be like, oh, you don't know, man.
At no point did I feel like Georgia was going to lose that game. And it almost looked he wasn't enjoying any of it, even though they won the game. So, and I get it. We're the same way with Florida. Like it's, but it just feels worse watching basketball for some reason.
Yeah. And part of it too, like that, just for the Florida, like that basketball game against Houston didn't score for like the last 2 minutes of that game, and Florida won by 2 points. Right. So that is crazy that's a lot of stress in a short period of time that was really drawn out too, right? With all the timeouts and
if
video reviews and stuff.
If Clayton didn't force to contest that shot, the game could have just ended on a 3-pointer, right? So,
yeah, because the 3-pointer that Houston hit before that was from like the logo. So
Sharp and Cryer were going off, those guys. Yeah. And it was unbelievable they shut Clayton down. They completely shut him down.
Well, and the only thing I didn't like about the game, and they talked about this after, in the first half, there was 4 fouls called total. And then the second half, there was 21 or 23 or something like that.
They called 5 in a row on Florida in the first 2 minutes.
Well, and so it was clearly not officiated the same way, like that, which is super frustrating. Like it's the same in a lot of sports. Like it's easy to make, to be upset about the calls and the refs or the umpires, but all you want is consistency. If you have a big strike zone, just call it like that the whole time.
What are we doing today?
Calling pass interference, you just call it every time. Like, that they'll adjust, right? So, but what you can't do is say like that's not a foul for 20 minutes, and then in the second half, in the second 20 minutes, it's like, oh no, that is a foul now. Like you can't do that. And I think that was part of the reason why Florida won, because they were able to adapt to that a little bit quicker than Houston. Because Houston got to the bonus with like 8 minutes to go, which was a lot. So,
well, and they were doing makeup fouls too, because they called 5, I think, in a row on Florida at the beginning of the second half within maybe 2 minutes. It was crazy. Fast. And I thought, I've never actually seen anything like that before. And within the next 3 minutes, they called 5 in a row on they just basically caught up. And I thought, oh, come on. Now you guys are just doing makeup. I mean, okay, fine. You're, from a fan perspective, you're evening it out, but then that makes me think you actually don't really know what you're doing. You're just calling anything you want to kind of make it feel even. And I'm sure it's because the coaches are just screaming at them saying, you got to be joking, 5 fouls on one team in a row. Like that's not, what are you doing?
Yeah. And I think that, and again, is the average fan watching sports, what everyone I believe can agree with is that it's never okay. You never want the refs to make it about themselves, right? Like
No,
either
never.
showing up the player or the striking out someone in umpire, like in baseball, or like, with the technical fouls, happens a lot, is a big problem in the NBA and stuff. So you never wanted to make it about that. But when you go from 4 fouls in the first half to over 20 in the second, then you're making it about yourself, like the refs and what you're calling or what you didn't call. So it's that's the only bad part of that game, because there was 2 really good teams, really good different versions of them too. That's the other thing I like in football. You get the team that can run the ball really well, and then the team that doesn't give up the run, like has an amazing defense, and you're sort of you'd be like, all right, who's going to win this one, or how's this game going to look,
Yeah.
And that was the basketball game on Monday had that sort of feeling where Houston was really good athletically, defensively, really shut down Clayton. You're like, okay, how is Florida going to do it, right? And so
Well,
that's what made it so entertaining.
It seemed as though Houston dragged them into a Houston game.
Absolutely, yeah. And it was the over under was because Florida scores a lot of points. They were one of the top teams in the nation in scoring, but the over under was like 140, and it went under. So it was more of a Houston game than a Florida game.
Yeah, and that's when I thought, oh man, when Houston went up by 12 in the second half, I thought there's just no way they're coming back, especially against a team that's that good on defense. But then Florida's not a bad defensive team either. It just seems overshadowed by how good the defense is on Houston.
That was really the takeaway. That was in the last 3 games, Florida was down by 8 points plus in all 3 games. And they came back, and it was, and you need 2 things for that to happen. You need the good offense, but you need the good defense. You got to stop the other team from scoring, because if you just exchange baskets at that time, you lose by 8 points, right? So their defense really stepped up in all those games, and that absolutely was the difference. And it really good encapsulates it at that end of that basketball game where Clayton, who was by far the best offensive player for the team, like all tournament. It was his defensive play at the end that really separated that win for them, right?
So because they more or less shut him down offensively until the very end of the game.
4 points or something.
I think he had 11 by the end of the game, and almost all of it happened in the last 2 minutes.
And a lot of assists and rebounds too. So like it was still a complete game, but he
still affected the game. And that's when I thought, oh man, Houston's going to win this, because they took away Florida's best player. In the last 2 games, Clayton went off for 30 points, I think, in both games. And the way those games felt, it was like without him, they're just not winning without him. Yep. And it seemed like Houston had the right game plan. Like, we're taking Clayton away and let everybody else try to beat us. So it was basically working until the last 2 minutes.
Well, and that really says something about how good Houston is, because Texas Tech and Auburn knew that too, right? Like they knew that Clayton was really good and he's the key, and it's easier said than done. And it just shows you how good Houston's defense is. They were able to actually do that, because he had nothing in that first half. Like it's not like he was taking shots and missing. Like he had no shots. Like
and the few he did, they were not good. They were he couldn't even get close to the 3-point line. They were close. They were long range. They were ill advised. But I guess a player that good has the latitude. The coach probably lets him do that. But after missing 3 or 4, it was obvious. Oh, he's not going to get a good look here ever.
Yeah.
Anyways, that took years off my life watching that run. I mean, every game was satisfying at the end.
The football I can watch live still, but basketball I have to record it and watch it after. There's just too many delays and too much stops, and that really helps my stress level, because then I can, when it happens, you get over it faster, like skipping through it. So, but
I'm stuck ruminating through the commercials. Yeah. So, well, anyways,
but you get to watch it live on the West Coast, so that's even better.
Live on the West Coast without having to stay up till midnight. Yeah, it's just they're never going to change
on a work night.
I know. It's just going to be. East Coast people just have to stay up late to watch these things.
Yeah.
But anyways, so good for Florida. They're halfway to the double natty. If history can repeat itself, then we could possibly be looking. I mean, obviously a bunch of stuff has to go right. First and foremost, is Lagway healthy? And, there's still this mystery over what's going on with him.
Yeah. But Texas or Georgia has to have some sort of bacterial illness or something that go through the team to slow that would help too. But this is a great moment to be a Florida fan, to be a Florida student, the employee, because there's nothing like it when the basketball and football team are both doing well, and to be able to be there in Gainesville at that time would be great. So
good for the Gators, good for the fans. Yes, we're being a little bit homers this week, but we get to for for this one.
Yeah, it's like you said, I didn't know that, how rare it was to have win basketball and football, or in the same year. Florida's the only team that's done it. So
yeah,
and they have another opportunity to do it this year.
yeah. So
maybe.
We'll see. It would be nice because that means all my bets would hit. All right. So I think it's a good place to leave it for this one. All right. Catch you later.